Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an accomplished and respected author, a fellow member of the YPO from Mexico City, Mexico, Sophie Goldberg. Sophie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you. Sophie is the author of Moons of Istanbul, The Garden of Bulgaria, and many more books. And as I mentioned, she's a fellow member of the YPO. So, Sophie, before we talk about your books, you have such a rich cultural heritage with roots in both Turkey and Bulgaria. How has your background influenced your journey as a writer?
Oh, it has influenced it profoundly because you can never forget your roots. You can never forget your traditions. And in my case, I am so fortunate to have this wonderful cultural heritage from Turkey, coming from my grandmother, from my mother's side. And on the other side, my father was born in Bulgaria. And for different reasons, my family in Turkey and my family in Bulgaria migrated to Mexico. Mm-hmm. And Mexico gave to all of these roots all its culture and its richness also. So I'm kind of a mix of all of this. Mm. And when you write about your family history, in my case, yep, that is the theme of the book, of both the books. Mm. Well, it's absolutely profound, this influence that I have and that I continue to inherit to my grandsons and granddaughters.
Amazing, amazing. And tell me a little bit more about your early experiences in the literary world and the contests where you received so many awards.
Well, it was really wonderful to discover that I could write. I didn't know that I could write until I was invited to a contest. And I thought, okay, I will participate with something, a short story, and the short story won the contest.
Wow.
I'm talking about when I was about 15, 16 years old. And so I decided to explore a little more this side of me that I was just beginning to discover. And I learned, Ashutosh, that when life brings you an opportunity, you have to take it, because life gives us a lot of opportunities along the way, but sometimes we don't see them. I could have said, okay, I won, this is wonderful, and that's it. But from that, I continued writing and exploring my capability and going into many more contests and discovering that people liked what I wrote. And it was wonderful to know that I had a voice and that I could share something with whoever was reading me.
Amazing. And how would you describe the evolution of your own writing style and storytelling over the years?
Oh, it has changed so much. At first, as I said, I started at 15, so it was I would call it a little bit an immature writing. But then as years went by and I had different experiences in life, like falling in love, like having children, which is one of the most wonderful things that a woman can experience, like traveling, and mostly finding out the story of my own family, that gave me the maturity to write differently. And one thing that I have to tell you that is very important to me is that I am in love with words. So sometimes when I'm out of inspiration, let's say, I just take a dictionary and read words.
Wow.
And find the meaning or the synonyms or antonyms of that word, and that alone inspires me.
Wow.
So I have been very I feel like I'm all the time surrounded by words. And that has given me also the maturity to learn and to pick the perfect word that I want to use for a phrase or for a title.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. So let's now talk about your book, Moons of Istanbul. Tell us about the symbolism. There is your book. Beautiful. So I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check Sophie Goldberg's book on Amazon, Moons of Istanbul. Thank you for showing it.
So and tell us in Spanish.
And this is in Spanish.
In Spanish.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. So, Sophie, tell us about the symbolism of the Moons of Istanbul and its significance to the story.
Well, the Moons of Istanbul are exactly the symbol of what I felt the first time I went to Istanbul and met my own family. I knew for my whole life that I had family across the Atlantic, but I had never seen them. And it was kind of made me feel like my life puzzle was missing one piece. And the first time that I went to Istanbul to meet them, I went with my parents, with my sisters, and it was incredible how the moon was all the time in an amber color and very, very close to the Bosphorus. And it made me feel like my grandmother, the protagonist of the story, was with me. So I decided to name the book Moons of Istanbul because that was, my guide through my journey in that first trip that, I must say, I have come back many, many times.
Yeah.
And now the liaisons between the family in Mexico and the family in Turkey are very, very close.
Amazing, amazing. So Moons of Istanbul follows Ventura's journey to Mexico for an arranged marriage. Ventura, I'm assuming, is your grandmother.
That's right.
Why did you choose to select her as the main protagonist of your story?
It's very important what you're asking me, Ashutosh, because maybe you will agree with me, but most of the migration stories around the world, I would say, are viewed and are told from the men's point of view.
Correct.
Because many times the man is the one that goes to a new land to explore and then brings the whole family.
Yeah.
So everything is told from his eyes. But what happens with the women migrant? And I wanted to tell this story from her point of view because I wanted to honor women migrants around the world and say that even though the men usually do the first effort, women are in charge of keeping traditions, of keeping the family around the table, of cooking the same things they used to cook in their land of origin, and for traditions to be able to subsist, to continue, it's the woman who has to be there.
Very well said. Women are also responsible to dig roots into the new country to make the whole family stronger. Men could just change and go away somewhere else again.
That's right.
So, my next question is, Sophie, what aspects of Turkish culture and traditions were most important for you to portray through Ventura's journey?
Well, for me, it was very important to show my readers a book that is multisensorial. So food, aromas, tastes, and even music are included in the book, because a culture has all these elements. Doesn't matter which culture. Mm-hmm. But in this one, I'm talking about Turkish culture. But the interesting part is that this culture is mixed with Sephardic culture, because we are descendants from the Jews that were expelled from Spain in 1492. That's how my family got to Turkey. And so it's a beautiful and very interesting mixture of Sephardic culture brought from Spain and Turkish culture.
How interesting. And what themes of migration and adaptation do you explore in the Moons of Istanbul?
Well, these are very, very profound themes, because on the one hand, the heart of the protagonist, as the heart of any migrant, is still in the land of his roots. But on the other hand, the migrant has to adapt and has to adopt the new land to be able to be happy. Otherwise, he will be or she will be always thinking about the land of origin. So I explore this combination of emotions that have to be mixed and intertwined to be able to go on with life, missing the old land, but enjoying the new one.
Interesting. One more question for Moons of Istanbul, and then we move to your other book. What challenges did you face in bringing this story to life and ensuring its authenticity?
Well, I had to be and wanted to be truthful, totally truthful about the story, because it is if you read it, you would think that it's fiction. That's how amazing the story by itself is. Wow. And I wanted also the reader to have a sense of having learned something in history. So I weaved the story of Ventura with the things that were happening in Turkey in 1927 and in Mexico, which had just finished a revolution. So it was interesting and it was challenging to do this weaving to be able to tell a story well told that would interest the people. It is not only the story of a migration of a woman, of the generosity of a new land, but it is full of historic dates and things that I think the public is going to be very interested in knowing.
Fantastic. Thank you. So let's now talk about the Garden of Bulgaria. This book centers on a little boy's experience during World War II. What was the inspiration to focus on this perspective in your book?
Well, this is the Garden of Bulgaria. And the inspiration was really the story of my own family again. But in this case, this book tells a story that nobody knows in the world. And that is the story of Bulgaria. Bulgaria was a country that decided that its citizens, it didn't matter if they were Jews or Armenian or whatever, they were Bulgarian citizens and they had to be defended from the Nazis and Hitler. And 50,000 people were saved by the King of Bulgaria, King Boris III, from going to the gas chambers. So I thought, being this story so close to me, because my family was saved by the king, I had to tell the story, and I had to try to make it known, because if you see a map of Europe before the war and after the war, all of them have millions and millions of people have been killed. But if you see Bulgaria, it says 50,000 Jews before the war and 50,000 Jews after the war. So I really had to make this known.
Amazing. And Sophie, what did your research reveal about Bulgaria's unique response to the Nazi demands for Jewish deportation? And how did that shape your story? And you told me that there were 50,000 Jews before and 50,000 Jews after.
Yes, well, part of the story was told to me by my father, who is still alive. Yesterday was his 88th birthday.
Wonderful.
He lived this story. He was only 6 years old, and that's why the protagonist of the book is his voice. He is telling the story from a child's point of view. And for me, it was a challenge, really, to do this research, because there was not much written about what happened in Bulgaria. It was difficult to find history books and places that were telling the story. But the challenge that I would say was the most difficult one was to accept myself as the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, which I had known all my life. But writing the book was like doing a psychological and emotional search inside myself, and finding out that it was hard, very hard, to have this responsibility, because for me it is a responsibility.
Correct.
To continue with this story and to make it known, and to have the world know that there is still good people that is willing to give their life, even to help others.
Very well said. Well said. Your book also contains rare photographs of labor camps. What impact do you hope this will have on the readers?
Well, it has already had a great impact in the book, because of these three photographs that you're talking about, is considered a history document. And I found that those three photographs doing this research in the safe box of my grandparents.
Wow.
And my grandfather had these three photographs in which he is in the photographs with other people in labor camps, because although they were saved, there were labor camps in Bulgaria. And my grandfather was for 3 years working in one of those. And we had never seen those photographs, not in my family. Nobody knew that they existed. I discovered them. And it's really painful I have to say, to see one of yours be in that situation. But it has been wonderful to see the reaction of readers saying, wow, I can relate to this and I can understand the pain and also the joy of having survived to these horrors.
Sophie, I have time for two more questions. How did you balance the historical accuracy with storytelling in your book, The Garden of Bulgaria?
It was hard. I have to tell you, because I didn't want this to seem like a book from high school telling you facts of history. I wanted it to be really touching, and it was hard. I had to rewrite many chapters because I would read them aloud and hear myself like I was a teacher. So I did this work, and I think it really came out very beautiful, because the part that made it special was gratitude. And I have lived with gratitude all my life. My grandparents and my father have told me this story many times, and that made the difference.
Wow. And my last question for you, Sophie. Your book, The Garden of Bulgaria, was presented to the King of Bulgaria and his son, Prince Constantine, in October 2024. Tell me about this experience, about this event, and how did you feel?
Oh, this was life-changing, really. Talk about experiences that really bring something to your life. This was one of them, because as I said, I have lived all my life with this gratitude, and being able to be in front of King Simeon of Bulgaria, the son of King Boris III, who, as I said, saved my family, and tell him, thank you. Thanks to you and your father, I am here, because your father didn't know that he was saving one family, but he was saving also me and my children and my grandchildren, generations.
Yeah.
So it was one of the most important things that I've done in my life, I can tell you. And this debt of gratitude was paid. But the most incredible thing was that he was crying. The king was crying and was telling me, I will never be the same, because I finally met somebody that my father saved. And for me, his death was worth it. Amazing. So imagine how fulfilling, how wonderful it was for him and his family, Prince Constantine also, and for me and my family, because my family came with me. For me, it was very important that my children would be there to see how one has to never forget what the others did for you. Absolutely. Even though your situation is now good and you live in freedom and whatever, you must never forget and never stop saying thank you.
Amazing. And on that note, Sophie, I just want to say what an incredible conversation I've had with you today. You know, you have built or written one book about your grandmother's journey. You've written one book about your father's journey, and you have virtually immortalized both the two generations that have gone ahead of you. And I'm sure everyone will be appreciative of that. Thank you for talking to me a little bit about your own writing career. We covered some amazing stories. And as a storyteller, I'm sure we could carry on talking of both Moons of Istanbul and the Garden of Bulgaria, because not only are you a good writer, but you're obviously a very good storyteller, and therefore conversation comes very easily to you. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much, and hope to see you very soon again with a new story.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.